In this video, let's continue to translate the data model that we established right at the beginning of the section into some actual code. And so this time, we're going to implement the reviews model. So the first step is to create a new file in the models folder and call it reviewmodel.js. And to me, this looks like yet another great challenge for you to practice some of the skills that you already learned up to this point. Okay, so in this challenge, I want you to create the review model. And what we need in there is actually very simple. So let me put that here in a comment. So we basically want the review, so the text for the review. We want a rating, so just like this. Then we also want created at, so with the current timestamp. And then we also want a reference to the tour that this review belongs to, and also to the user who wrote this review. Okay, so basically two parent references here, right? And so with the stuff that you learned in the last couple of lectures, you should be able to actually complete this challenge completely on your own. So pause the video now and good luck with that. Okay, so I hope you didn't just skip this and instead you really implemented it by yourself. And anyway, this is how I created it. So of course, we need to start by requiring Mongoose. And then the review schema is equal to new mongoose.schema. And so let's start adding our fields. So first, the review is of course a string. All right, and of course I'm doing this too fast, so I also need to specify type. And then let's also set it to required. And so true review cannot be empty. Then we want a rating. And this one is of the type number. And the rating is ideally between 1 and 5. And so the minimum is 1 and the max is 5. So as you already know, these are some simple validators that work only for numbers, right? This is not correct here. Okay. Next up, the created at. And so this is of type date. And by default, we want date.now. Okay. So this was the easy part. And let's actually also create the model and export it before adding these references. So const review is equal to mongoose.model with the name review, and then of course our schema. Okay, so our review schema. And to finish, of course, module.export equals the review. All right, and now comes the reference part. So a review, of course, needs to belong to a tour, and it also needs an author. Okay, so that's again what we specified in our data modeling lecture. So basically that we were going to implement parent referencing here in this case, because both the tour and the user are in a sense the parents of this dataset. And we decided to do it this way because we don't want potentially huge arrays in the parent elements, right? So we should not design our application thinking that there will be only a few reviews, only to then come back to it after some time and find out that our assumptions were wrong, and now we need to rebuild our entire data model. So that would be terrible. And so in many situations, as you already know, when we do not really know how much our arrays will grow, then it's just best to opt for parent referencing. And so again, that's exactly what we're doing here when we're referencing tour and user. So let's actually now go ahead and implement that, and starting with the tour. All right. So here we need some space, and okay. So the type is, as we did before, mongoose, and that's not correct. So mongoose dot schema dot object ID with a capital O and a capital I, but not the D. And I'm just telling you that because I once wrote ID like this and then spent half an hour trying to figure out why my application wasn't working. Okay, so this D needs to be lowercase. Anyway, the reference in this case is of course the tour. And we also want to make this required. So true, and then review must belong to a tour. Okay, and just like this, each review document now knows exactly what tour it belongs to, while the tour, of course, doesn't know initially what reviews and how many reviews there are. But that is a problem that we will actually solve a bit later. Okay, next up, when there is a review, we not only want to know what tour it belongs to, but also who wrote this review. So user, and again, the same type of mongoose.schema.objectID. And this time the reference, as you can imagine, is going to be user. Okay, and again we make it required because, well, a review really cannot work without an author, basically. And so review must belong to a user. Okay, oh no, that's actually it. All right. Now just to finish, let's actually also add these options to the schema where we make it so that virtual properties also show up in JSON and object outputs. Okay, so we did that before in the tours. I'm not sure if we did it in the user model, but anyway, here we are actually going to need it a bit later. And so we need to specify that. Remember? So basically what I mean is this part, okay? So I'm actually going to go ahead and copy it just to save us some time. And so again, all this does is to really make sure that when we have a virtual property, so basically a field that is not stored in a database, but calculated using some other value, so we want this to also show up whenever there is an output, right? And so that's what we do here. Okay, and so I think that's actually it for now. So very simple. The only a bit tricky part is actually to create these references here, but we actually did that before, and so it really works in the exact same way, right? So in the next video, we will then use the schema in order to create some new reviews. So see you then.